it's another edition of the show. Thank you for joining us. And this is, of course, Frontier Opening Bell. I'm Temple Ashadio. Bosun Amafaya, executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports, is the only one right now to serve us the breakfast. And let's tee off with the markets. Nigeria was positive yesterday by some 29 basis points. The BRVM Stock Exchange in Ivory Coast was also positive by 25 basis points. Egyptian Stock Exchange was up as well, 21 basis points. Kenya, we've got the Nairobi Stock Exchange, was positive by some 83 basis points. And Johannesburg Stock Exchange rising by some 0.46%. This is actually rare to see green all through the markets. It's not something we see on daily basis, but it's good to celebrate that or to mention that. Let's move on down to the Eastern African headlines. Kenya misses some 2.9 trillion Kenyan shillings March revenue target, collects only 1.9 trillion shillings. Of course, remittances inflow hit some $290.8 million. USA topped more than 55%. BOC gases in Kenya got its profits doubling by some 81.9% to 101.7 shillings in 2020. Rwanda begins construction of first Rwandan franc 29 billion floor tiles plant. And of course, Bank of Tanzania floats 25-year treasury bonds. You have Zanzibar planning its own bourse for islanders to boost investments. Bosun.
Temple, this is very interesting, and I'm going to start from the bottom, which is the island of Zanzibar, which is Tanzania's archipelago. And this island on the Indian Ocean, what called a paradise of a place. I missed an opportunity of being there a couple of years ago because we were running for the Dangote cement trade, and then we thought our flights were, so we dropped off in Dar es Salaam, and we thought we were going to be able to make a quick dash to Zanzibar. But again, we suddenly got a confirmation that, we've got to fly by 12 o'clock, and we had already bought tickets, and we're heading to the boat. That we had quite good breakfast at the hotel, because all the talk in Dar es Salaam was how beautiful Zanzibar is. Everyone should be at Zanzibar. So I missed that opportunity. I'm looking forward to going there. And then we took the plane across the Indian Ocean to where the cement factory location was, and we flew over the Indian Ocean, and we're looking a bit of that Zanzibar down there. So quite a very interesting place. But this is quite ambitious. For them to want to set up a stock exchange of their own, it's going to be a little bit more like Mauritius, which is also on the Indian Ocean as well, having its own exchange as well. I think it's good for this island to have its own 5-year development plan, and making a standalone stock exchange be part of it. It's going to be a whole lot of hard work. The companies that will have to do listing, I'm sure they'll be looking at tourism, leisure, and hospitality, where these companies will come. Perhaps some of the companies from mainland Tanzania, Uganda, maybe even Kenya will do some of those listing or cross-listing listing on the exchange. That is something remains to be seen. Will they focus on derivatives and all of that? We'll see in the future. But it's quite an ambitious plan, and I think anything that would deepen and expand the African market, I'm game for that any day. The Kenyan remittances.
Sorry to cut now. Do you think the collapse of the tourism sector is something that could have fueled this particular development or this decision?
Most likely. Tourism is not going to die. Tourism globally, travel tourism is on their knees right now. That industry, hotel, hospitality, is on their knees. But if you look at the stories coming out of the United States with the Netflix subscription rate down, again, because as you see ease of restrictions in the US, folks are heading back to the theaters, the AMC, the IMAX, and the rest of them. Folks are going back to the theaters. You see, the human interaction, see me, see you, not on digital form like this, but in flesh and blood. The feel that this is a human next to me cannot be replaced by anything else on the planet. Forget about technology. Technology is great. But technology cannot and will never, ever replace humanity. So let's have that at the back of our mind. So tourism tourism will get up, maybe a little bit slower in getting up and rising again than the hard fall that it had last year up to where we are right now. But I think somehow we'll be able to get our hands on it. I think it should take just about a year, and the authorities and humans, all of us, will find a way around the virus get our heads around it, how to move around safely, enjoy our lives, move along and what have you. If you look at big names like Marriott Hotel, for example, they are planning massive expansion in the north of Africa, for example, I think Morocco also, or Egypt. They're looking for additional numbers of hotels they're going to build, because again, they know that once this virus is suppressed to a very certain degree, humans will surge. They'll move out all MS and folks who want to take that holiday they've not had. They want to go back. Yesterday, the shares of ocean liners and cruise liners on New York Stock Exchange were up. Because again, on the back of that optimism, even though there were no rising cases of the virus in Asia, which also impacted the oil price of oil and if you Brent crude and the US oil and all that. But back to the remittances story for Kenya. I think I love the Kenyans being very good at sending more remittances home. 290, nearly $300 billion in the first quarter of this year. That's a record. And I say kudos to them in Kenya. The Bank of Tanzania doing the T-bond. Nigeria did a DMO, did a 150 billion yesterday, 3 government paper. Everybody's in the market right now, raising money fast and furious. The revenue authorities in Kenya, it seems like a different story, because now they're reporting a decline in revenue collection for the first quarter. But then they're still fighting this 1% minimum tax, which the Kenya Revenue Authority we reported yesterday says they are going to challenge the court decision to suspend that new minimum tax.
Thank you very much for this analysis there. Let's move on to the West African headlines now, where the Debt Management Office of Nigeria sells 3 federal government bonds worth 150 billion naira for April. The GTBank reports some 45 billion naira profits in the first quarter of 2021. Airtel Africa gets some $500 million refinancing loan facility for 750 million euros Eurobond. Emzor lists 13.7 billion naira 5-year Series 1 bonds due 2026 on NGX, and of course, Fidelity Bank lists some 41.2 billion naira 10-year 8.5% Series 1 bond on NGX as well. World Bank Mali signed some $60 million facility to promote access to finance. Quite a number of corporate stories here to chew, Bosun.
Yes, quite a whole lot of corporate news there. Of course, the whole market is up. I love the Emzor story again because it's an unlisted pharmaceutical companies, a very big indigenous name, fraught in everybody's face. They've got brands that have been on the ground. Their own version of Panadol and so in Nigeria had been a household name for years and for decades. So I salute them that they're still in business. And I'm waiting to see whether this first public debt issuance by Emzor is a way of dipping their fingers into the market to test how it is, or test how the market really is, and what follows could as well be a listing to add to the likes of Fixing Pharmaceuticals, Memphis and GlaxoSmithKline and the rest of them. So Pharmadeco, so that's good. That's good news. I look forward to that. The Airtel Africa additional $500 million to try and refinance its Eurobond. Look, Airtel is rolling. It's a cash machine. It has money. Its main competitor, NGN, is also in the market. Just concluded about 100 billion within the Nigerian bond market as well. Did a CP last year as well. So they are borrowing fast and furious to expand mobile money business, expanding infrastructure. They want to roll out 4G, 5G, whatever. Again, the demography speaks to what needs to be done in terms of the fintech penetration, the whole financial inclusion, the work from home, the expansion of a broadband and data, in which even if we start working all the way back to the offices and all of that, we're not going to go down significantly on our data plan, because now we are hooked on them, because now we can talk, we can chat, we can do meetings and what have you. All this will not evaporate anytime soon. So the whole infrastructure backbone that will help all of this, including the payment system, again, with the AFCFTA intra-Africa trade, they will be part of the solutions to ensure the seamless payment, settlements, whatever, for the intra-Africa trade across the region. So they are all doing that, and that's quite some good news as well on the ground. The DMO story is already there. The rates are climbing. and we saw the results overnight, how the allotment came in for the month of April, Naira bond. Fidelity Bank has been in the market in the news for some time. They will continue to raise money. But one story again we're looking at is that of Chad. What's the implications of the what looks like a military coup or whatever would bring to this country? Okay, I forgot about GTBank. Yes. GTBank numbers came in yesterday, not as particularly as sterling as we would have wanted it to see. I think they had about 5% decline in top line, about 9% bottom line. So I think the year started a bit on a very shifty note and all of that. So we would like to see what comes from other lenders. UBA has also reported first quarter looks a little bit healthier than GTBank. And perhaps this is the consequences of the restructuring into become a holdco that is beginning to go on. We'll try and find out more. I think they will do a conference call anytime soon to see if the breaking up of GTBank to become a holding company is beginning to have some effect in the first quarter. They expected to conclude it this quarter or so.
True. Thank you so much for those editorials, both. And let's move on to the Southern African headlines, where we've had South Africa's consumer price index rising by 3.2% in March 2021 compared to 2.9% in the preceding months. You have Singapore-based Karoooo officially listing on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange's main board. Vivo Energy to release the first quarter 2021 financial update on April the 27th. That's about next week, Wednesday. You have Pick and Pay profits dipping by more than 19.1%. Namibia currency in circulation rises 4.3% to over 4.7 billion Namibian dollars in 2020. South Africa's total it's not total, but South Africa's total private wealth down by 25% between 2015 and 2020 as over 4,000 millionaires flee that region or that climb. Bosun.
Yes, inflation in South Africa is not much of a bad news as it were, even it crept up a little bit, but the underlying news is that a bit of a food prices and what of that is still at the lower end of a single digit, rather Nigeria at double digit and at the upper end of double digit as well. So we're in two different scenarios here. South Africa is single digit 3.2, Nigeria is at 20% up north or so there. So we're in a different situation right now. Nigeria's inflation is red hot. You can't hold it. South Africa is still subdued, even at 3.2%, but they've got to watch it with the implications moving forward. For Pick and Pay, I think it's all understandable what happens. 19.1% decline in profits because, again, the lockdown was relaxed in the first quarter, blah, blah, and all of that. But then folks were still not going out with all that deep pockets to go and do shopping and Pick and Pay and what have you. So folks are just crawling their way, finding their way back to unemployment is still very high in South Africa, by the way, so disposable income is not as fluid as it were years ago. The Vivo Energy story, we're waiting to see what they will report on the 27th of April, by the way. So I'm not too sure is anyone's a problem per se. But what we'll get from them was likely. The story really is about the total private wealth that went down. So one report that was released on that, 25% between 2015 and 2020, and some of the millionaires left South Africa again. This is the nature of things, by the way. South Africa is one place where you can 4,200 millionaires. That's a whole lot. Who wants to be a millionaire? Interesting. Bosun, did you welcome Karoooo to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange or not? I'm surprised. Yeah, the Karoooo thing is, look, I'm sorry I missed that with the GSC, because you've seen the GSC in recent weeks and months increasing its visibility and entrenching its number one leadership position as the number one securities exchange in Africa. And this is interesting again, Temple. The other exchange that I see where foreign interests are coming through in terms of listings and whether it's derivatives or whatever is Egypt. So between Egypt and South Africa, you are seeing this. You look at what happens to Process from The other company went to list in Luxembourg and what have you. Then you find Coca-Cola planning an IPO and listing on the GSE. Now you talk about Karoooo, you've seen the Satrix ETF and a whole lot of others. So you will not see that in the West Coast here between Nigeria, the BRVM, the Ghana Stock Exchange. We're not seeing any major listing so far on the Nigerian Exchange Limited. Something has to happen to make our market a destination for these international companies and financial papers and others to list on our markets. We're not yet at the center. So that the GSE is an emerging market. The currency is free float and what have you. Very strong correlation with the US dollar and other peers within the emerging markets region. So it's good, very, very liquid. Again, by the way, the banking systems are a whole lot more. They have a lot of financial assets and instruments which you can trade. We don't have that in Nigeria yet. So now that the Nigerian Exchange Limited, the Nigerian Stock Exchange is demutualized to become an NGX group, we hope that this new horizon being a company will make the NGX go all out to reposition itself and market these international exchanges, or sort of companies to come and list. But again, mind you, they will have to consider a number of things. The country itself, the political, the socio-economic environment also matters for companies who want to list. The exchange rate is also important. Inflation is also very important. So we have a number of variables that are not really in our favor when they're saying where do we want to go in Africa to list. By the way, you find a few listings also happening through from Middle East and other into Egypt, again because of its currency, because the currency, the pound, the Egyptian pound is a carry trade favorite on the continent as well. You do the same thing also for South Africa. Carry trade in Nigeria is neither here nor there. So it becomes an issue for us that we have a whole lot to fix beyond what the Nigeria Exchange Limited can fix on its own. Broadly speaking, macroeconomically speaking, we're not that attractive destination for foreign listings, and that's not quite a very good news, by the way.
And if you permit me, besides the macro issues that you've just raised, one of the key issues at the exchange, as someone told me at Kent, is that the cost of listing in Nigeria is also still really, really very high. And if they can reduce that, the barest minimum, more countries will be attracted to come on board, especially the startups. Thank you very much for that analysis, Bosun. Let's finalize with the Northern African headlines we've got before us. Quite a number of corporates here again. You have Raya selling some 62.3% stake in Ostul to Paradigm Logistics at 266.56 million Egyptian pounds. ICT Investments profit slips to 35.2 million Egyptian pounds in 2020. Memphis Pharmaceutical increases profits by 96%. Of course, in the Tunisian Stock Exchange, BH Assurance posts some 40.2 million dinars. That's a positive of some 3% turnover in the first quarter of this year. It looks like pharmaceuticals are still the main investment destination at this point.
Well, Temple, if that's the one good thing we will take away from this coronavirus pandemic, good news for all of us. Temple, how many drug makers, whatever do we have on the continent? Our drug manufacturing on the continent is sub-zero in terms of total output, considering what we can do. And it's taken decades and decades for the authorities to realize that we need to have indigenous research laboratories to research indigenous diseases and illnesses and viruses and whatever, and begin to produce locally even for ourselves. We have 1.2 billion people on the continent. Apart from malaria drugs, whatever, I'm not too sure of any other strong drugs that we can produce on the continent. We need to change that. We have a whole lot of problems, health issues, tuberculosis, this and that in Africa, that we can have our own research laboratories, our own people who understand, who suffer the same illnesses, who can produce such drugs and what have you. So I hope the virus and this pandemic will be an eye-opener, the final one for Africa to say, look, time to look inward, time to build those research facilities on the continent, try to build infrastructure that will support them in terms of electricity, good roads, and a whole lot of other things. No, once you do pharmaceuticals, it goes all the way to agriculture. which is agri-health. It goes all the way to roots, herbs, leaves, tops, everything. Soil, the entire nature, biodiversity that we have on the continent, from Congo, Brazzaville, all the way to Senegal, all the way to South Africa, all the way to Kenya, all the way to the islands. So we have all it takes on the continent to have a very robust pharmaceutical research, diversity that we can harness to deliver drugs, pharmaceuticals, and healthcare to our people. That will be, even if we cannot build the best of the hospitals, and there are two parts to it. If you can't build those big health facilities, but we can have research and drug makers like Emzor and the rest of them, and this Memphis Pharma in Egypt, that can produce the drugs that we need. Then we can go to the level of building hospitals later. But we have the raw materials, and we've got the brains that can do this research for us to start with. So I don't mind us starting with producing drugs and herbs and things like that, using our local facilities. Then we can now talk about building hospitals that looks like the one in Georgia or in Washington, wherever.
Thank you very much, Bosun. You are the only attendee we had today, but you gave us a combination of editorial and, of course, analysis. Thank you for that combination. Thanks a great deal, Bosun. He's our editor here at Frontier Africa Reports, and this has been the show for today. I'm Temple Ashaju. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.